Hey, friends, it's Dana Shea, and you are listening to the Rebuilding Us Marriage podcast. I wanted to deviate a little bit from my normal marriage advice, and I want to talk directly to those who are looking to be married. With the Christmas holidays coming up and Valentine's Day right around the corner, there's going to be a lot of engagement rings purchased. And I want you to go into these new marriages fully equipped and ready, not just to have a good wedding or a beautiful wedding or an Instagram worthy wedding, but to have a great marriage. So, on today's episode, we are going to talk all about counting the costs before you get married. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and jump right in. We've got a lot to cover today. And I want those of you who have been married for a while, maybe you're like, oh, shoot, I should have counted the cost before I got married. It's okay. Stay with me because we're going to wrap this up in a nice bow and I'm going to give you some encouragement, even if you've been married for a while and you go back and you realize I should have thought about these things beforehand. Now, if you're not yet married, or better yet, even if you're not engaged, I want you to download this particular episode and refer back to it over and over. Listen to it with your fiance or with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or whomever you're in a relationship with, because this is going to help strengthen you. I believe the best defense is a good offense. There are a lot of marriages that are struggling because they never had a plan. They loved each other. They thought it sounds good to get married. And they went ahead and got married. And now they're like, WITW. What in the actual world? So I want to help you to avoid that phenomenon. Okay. You are going to face some challenges in marriage. That's just a part of life. But I do believe that you can go into this equipped, prepared, wise, and ready. Where do I get this term counting the cost from? Well, Jesus actually spoke about it. In the book of Luke, chapter 14, I'm going to read just a few verses. Starting at verse 28, Jesus says this: "For which of you, wanting to build a tower, doesn't first sit down and count the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, after he has laid the foundation and cannot finish it, the onlookers will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This man started to build and wasn't able to finish.'" Friends, this is where this whole episode is coming from. There are a lot of people who start building a marriage, they think. They start to put things in place, but they don't actually have a plan. And so what happens is in year 2, it starts to fall apart. In year 4, the foundation begins to crumble. And then they're looking at their marriage as this unfinished project because they didn't count the cost. They did not think about what is actually involved to building a successful marriage. You guys, I've been married for 25 years. And let me tell you something. We had a marriage that was not built on the right foundation when we first started. And that's why that thing crumbled. But then when we learned how to actually build our marriage on the right foundation, it made all the difference. Now we can go through winds and waves and storms of life, and we're not going to fall apart. We're not going to be shaken. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have ups and downs. It doesn't mean that sometimes I'm not going to like Sean and he's not going to like me. But it does mean that we have counted the cost. We know what it takes in order to have a successful marriage. So, number one, we need to understand that a wedding lasts for a few hours, but a marriage lasts for a lifetime. It breaks my heart every time I look online and I'm looking for marriage resources, and I keep getting redirected to all these wedding sites. I don't want to know about how to have a good wedding. Anybody can throw together a good party, can put together a good show. I want to know how to create a lasting marriage. And that's why you're here on this episode today as well, because you want to know that. I'm not saying don't have a beautiful wedding. Go all out. Do as much as you can afford to do. But just understand that that is just a glimpse in time, a brief few hours if you include the reception. But your marriage is what actually lasts the lifetime. So when I talk to premarital couples, I always tell them, I won't marry you. I am an ordained pastor. I will not marry you if you do not invest in premarital counseling. I won't do it. If you can invest in a DJ, if you can invest in a photographer, a videographer, a wedding venue, but you can't invest in the thing that's actually going to sustain your marriage, I can't help you. There are too many people who put the focus and the priority on the wrong things just so they can have a beautiful Instagram pic, just so that they can say that they hired this particular wedding planner. Listen, that's all well and fine, but make sure that you put your real investment in the actual marriage. I love when couples come to me and they're not yet engaged. I'm like, listen, you guys are making my day. Because to be honest, when I do meet with a couple and they're engaged and they're coming to me for premarital counseling, even if there's something that's really wrong in their relationship, something that's really off, the chances of them calling off that engagement and losing all of those deposits are slim. But when someone has not yet invested all that money, then they're much more likely to say, hold on, let's put the brakes on this. Let's clean up some stuff in our relationship. Let's unpack some baggage. Let's heal emotionally before we start to join our lives together. So I don't know where you are. Again, maybe you're already married, or maybe you're about to get engaged, or maybe you are engaged. Wherever you are, I just want to stress, put the focus on the marriage, not the wedding. Hey loves, whether you're about to say I do or you already did, here's a truth bomb. Every healthy marriage is built on the same few relationship secrets, and I want you to get in on them. That's why I've created 7 secret marriage rules to know before I do and after I did. A free audio packed with real deal insights on how to protect, prioritize, and find genuine pleasure in your marriage. No fluff, just practical tools to help your marriage thrive. Why wait for a better marriage when you can start now? Download your free audio today and build a love that lasts. It's time to level up your relationship. Download the 7 secrets at danashay.com/7 secrets. That's DANACHE.com/7 secrets. Get your free audio now. You can thank me later. I'm just going to kind of roll through some of these steps. And this is definitely one of those podcast episodes that you are going to want to get the show notes to. Okay. So you can find all the show notes over at danashay.com. The first thing that I want to ask you to ask yourself is this the person that I want to be with for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years? Can you imagine growing old with this person? Is this someone that you want in your life every day of your life? Because that's what marriage is all about. Marriage is not something that we try out, like a trial offer. I'm going to give you 30 days to see if you really like this thing, and then you can send it back. Marriage is a covenant. So when you enter into it, it is not supposed to be broken. There is way too much of this disposal mentality where it concerns marriage, even in the church, even amongst Christians. I hear people saying things like, well, it just didn't work out. Well, what do you mean? Marriage doesn't work. Y'all have heard me say this a million times. A good marriage isn't one that works. A good marriage is the one that you put in the work. So your marriage isn't going to work. It isn't alive. It's not breathing. It's not active. You have to bring the work to it. So if you cannot imagine yourself with this person for 10, 15, 25, 35 years, you don't need to get married. The second question I want you to ask is this someone who I want raising my children? Have you ever seen them around children? Do they like children? Do you want to have kids? Do they want to have kids? You guys will be amazed with some of the couples that I work with in premarital, and they've never had the child conversation before. They've never even talked about, do you want kids? What kind of parent do you want to be? If you've got one spouse or soon to be spouse, and they're all about like that heavy hand, that discipline, I'm going to raise you the way my grandmother raised me. And then you've got the other person who's all into gentle parenting. Can you imagine the dysfunction that's going to exist in that marriage? So these are some conversations that I lead my premarital couples in having before marriage. What kind of parent do you want to be? Is this somebody you want raising your children? What habits do they have that you want passed down to your children? Or are there habits that you absolutely do not want passed down to your children? These are all the questions that go into counting the cost before you say yes. All right, number 3, I want you to ask yourself, do they get along with my family? Whoa, 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 whoa. Do they get along with your family? Now, you might not get along with your family. So you're like, I don't care if they like my family. I don't like my family. Listen, friends, we need to fix the family dysfunctions before we start entering into new relationships. Your family, no matter how broken, no matter how dysfunctional they are going to play a part in your marriage. Now, I know that there are some families that are highly dysfunctional, and maybe you have a reason that you are estranged from your family. They're not safe, they're abusive, they're manipulative, whatever. I get it. There are a lot of things that can happen. But I'm talking to folks who you've got a pretty good family. You've got your issues every now and again, but your family is a part of you. You're a part of them. If your new or soon to be spouse does not get along with them, or they disdain them, or they're always talking down about your family, that is a bright red flag. And you really need to pay attention to that. They don't have to be best friends with your family, but they're going to be integrated into your family and you're going to be integrated into theirs. So meet your in laws. I think it's absolutely ridiculous for the first time people meet their soon to be in laws is the day that they're announcing their engagement. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You're going to marry into someone's family that you've never met? No, you not only need to meet mom and dad, you need to meet siblings, you need to meet Aunt Betsy, you need to meet Uncle Tom. You need to know who and what you're about to marry into. Okay, I've lost track of count, so I'm just going to keep going. All right. The next question that you need to ask is what do your friends think about them? Your friends are in your life to keep you safe. Your friends know you better than you know yourself. Your friends know the real you. And I'm talking about good friends that you've had for a long time. If your friends do not like your soon to be spouse, you have a problem. Now, if you've got crazy jealous friends, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the good friends that keep you on the right track. Why don't they like your spouse? That'd be a great question to ask. Don't just bypass other people's opinions of your new spouse thinking, well, it's not their business. They don't have to live with them. No, but they are going to have to listen to you vent about them when y'all start having problems. Now, I'm not saying nix the relationship just because your friends don't like your spouse, but what I am encouraging you to do is to have some conversations around that. What red flags do they see? What danger zones are they afraid of? Listen to the advice of other people who speak into your relationship. I hope that you're enjoying this episode so far, and I hope that you're taking notes. If not, don't worry about it. Like I said, download this episode so that you can go back to it. And of course, you can always look at the show notes. Okay, let's keep going. We're talking about some things, some questions that you need to be asking yourself before you get married. We're talking about counting the cost. This next one is probably the most important one. Not probably, it is the most important question that you need to ask. And it is, what is this person's spiritual health look like? Where are they at with their relationship with the Lord? Now, I understand that everyone who listens to this podcast is not a Christian. Maybe you don't care about what they think about the Lord because you don't think anything about the Lord. Wherever you are spiritually, you need to make sure that your soon to be spouse is on a similar page with you. The Bible says, what fellowship does light have with darkness? How can two walk together unless they be agreed? What that means is if you've got someone who's a Christian and someone who's not, you are asking for trouble. There is a very clear mandate for Christians in the Bible not to be unequally yoked together. That terminology, you may have heard me talk about this before. It references a farming culture where you would have these two oxen that were yoked or tied together to carry a load. If one ox was stronger than the other, it put undue pressure on the strong ox. The weak ox gets to kind of skate by. And so, what we want to avoid here is you're on fire for God and your soon to be spouse goes to church whenever they feel like it. Yeah, that might be cute now because you guys aren't living together and you're not having to deal with that every day. But when you get married and y'all start going through some craziness and you're like, we need to fast and pray, and they're like, fast and what? I am not fasting. I don't believe we need to pray. I think that we're good. I think we just need to seek therapy. I think, and you're sitting there looking like, who did I marry? This is the time, friend, to have these conversations about where are you at in your spiritual walk. And you don't need to just rely on what they tell you because you can see with your own eyes where they are. Some of us go into relationships blindly thinking we're going to change our spouse. When we get married, they're going to change. That is the biggest lie. You cannot change your spouse.
You cannot change your spouse.
And all the married people are saying, amen, waving their hankies because you cannot change your spouse. If there's something that you see about this person that you don't like, then you need to ask yourself, is this something that I'm willing to live with? Because that's probably going to remain. Where are they at spiritually? This really, really matters. I cannot stress this enough. All right, next. What do their finances look like? OMG, you guys, again, premarital sessions. There are so many couples who have no idea what their soon to be spouse's credit score is. That's not private information if you are so far down the road in a relationship that you're considering marriage. You need to know what their credit score is. How much debt do they have? What are their thoughts about debt? Do they think that it's a cool thing, a good thing? Do they live above their means? What do they believe about saving? What do they believe about giving? Are they generous? This is why one of the sessions that I do with all of my premarital clients is finances. We're going to talk about it. We're going to ask the embarrassing questions. It's better to be embarrassed now than to get married and find out your spouse has $500,000 worth of student loan debts and they have a 200 credit score. I'm telling you, it happens. This is a question that you need to ask. This is a conversation that you need to have. Many conversations. This isn't just like a one and done. You need to find out what you're about to join yourself legally to, because in most states, you're going to incur that debt. So have the money conversations. Don't shy away from those. Super important. Okay, friends, we've got about 3 more questions that I want you to ask. This next question is, how do they behave when they get angry? Oh, I love my couples that are like, we've never had a fight. I'm like, pause, time out. Go have a fight and come back to me after you're done. Because if you don't know that your soon to be spouse likes to slam doors and punch holes in walls before you get married, and then you get married and you're thinking, what in the world have I done? Does your spouse have an anger problem? Do they have suppressed anger? Are they passive aggressive? Or are they just passive and never speak up for themselves? These are all things that you need to know. You need to see your spouse or soon to be spouse when they are very angry, when they're at their lowest. I'm trying to help you not to be so surprised after you say, I do. So find out, how do they behave when they're disappointed? What happens when they don't get their way? And you'll know this by listening to conversations when they talk about what happened at them at work, when they didn't get that promotion that they thought that they were eligible for, what happens when their friend didn't invite them to that party. Start listening for clues, you guys. Because guess what? Our character is going to be the same regardless of what relationship you're in. So if they're manipulative and petty in other relationships, and you don't think that they're going to be that way with you, do you understand what I'm saying? All right. The next question is, and this might be a no brainer, but you would be surprised. A lot of these, you would be surprised at how many things people don't think about. But I want you to ask yourself, do you genuinely love this person? Not just, well, we've been together for 4 years and it's probably time that we get married. My parents are on our case and everybody's asking why we're not married. No, 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 no. Ask yourself, do I genuinely love this person so much that I want to join my life with them for the rest of my life? If you cannot answer that question with a confident absolutely, please do not get married. Now, love is not the most important quality. I know you guys might be shocked to hear me say that. What? What do you mean love isn't the most important quality? What is? Well, commitment is. Because there's going to be times that you don't always feel those loving feelings. Now, hopefully, you still love your spouse, even when you don't like them. And I've done episodes on that. I'll link to that in the podcast show notes. But there are going to be times that you might not always like your spouse. Hopefully, you still love them. But even then, love is not always enough. When Sean and I were going through premarital counseling, our counselor, David Martin, asked us to write 12 reasons why we wanted to get married and we could not use the word love. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. He needs to give me something a little bit more challenging than that. And I sat down with my little pen and paper and I was like, number one, it's harder than you think, you guys, because we're so used to being like, I love this person. They make me happy. And then when you start really thinking about, well, wait a minute. Now, why do I want to marry this person? If I can't use the word love, why am I making this choice? So that's an exercise that I want to give you to do. Before you say I do, I want you to write 12 reasons why you want to marry this person. Or if you are already married, what are 12 reasons why you're married to this person? If you can only come up with 2 reasons, you may need to pause until you can actually come up with more reasons for why you want to join the rest of your life to this person. And finally, I want you to have a conversation about what are the acceptable reasons for divorce. I know that seems so like anticlimactic, like unromantic, so morbid, Dana. Why are we talking about divorce when we're not even married yet? Well, because if your soon to be spouse is like, well, I mean, if you don't meet my needs, then I'm gonna have to bounce. I'm gonna have to go find somebody else. And you're like, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it for the long haul. I've got one reason and one reason alone. Well, you need to have those conversations. You need to find out what are their non negotiables. And then you need to be really clear about what your non negotiables are. For some people, it's infidelity. If you cheat on me, I'm done. And listen, if you marry somebody like that, you better not cheat on them because they said they're going to be done. No one should be cheating anyway, obviously. But my point is, you need to know where your new or soon to be spouse stands with what they feel about divorce. If divorce is an option for them, but it is not for you, well, then you guys can't get married because guess what? Life is going to happen. And those options are going to come in handy. And you're going to be standing there with a marriage certificate in your hand while that other spouse hasn't gone off and living their life with somebody else. So you all need to be clear about, is this for real and lasting or not? Are we pretending and we're just going to do this ceremony and go through the motions, or is this the real deal? And wherever you are, just be real clear on where you are. Count the cost. Marriage is expensive. I'm not talking about a wedding. Weddings are expensive, but marriage is so much more expensive. A wedding might cost you a few tens of thousands of dollars. Marriage will cost you your life. So as sure as you can be sure that this person is the one that you are going to spend your forever with. There's a lot that I did not know before I got married. I was 18. There's a whole lot I didn't know. And so I created a resource for not only just couples who are dating, but couples who are engaged. And I wanted them to know 7 things before they got married. So I want to gift you with that resource today. You can find that at danashay.com/7 things. And I will also link to that again in the show notes of this podcast. That is a free audio and downloadable PDF that I want to gift to you so that you can go through what are these 7 things that I need to know before I get married. Now, today's podcast episode was all about questions that you need to ask to count the costs. These 7 things are a whole different list. All right. I want you to be as prepared as you can before you say, I do. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that this episode has challenged your thinking a little bit, has given you a lot to talk about with your partner. Have these conversations. Don't just listen to this and be like, man, that was good. That was something else. And then go on about your day. No, pause. Have conversations. Make this real practical in your relationship. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for today. Thank you again for listening. I hope you have an incredible week. Again, show notes and all the things that I mentioned before, links to other shows, resources, all of that is available at danashay.com/podcast. I will see you on the next episode. Take care.